Minnesota Vikings fans, welcome back to the Purple People Eaters edition of the Living in Loserville podcast. I'm Chris, he's Aaron, and we're here to break down what the hell happened against our bitter rival, the Green Bay Packers. Just Swiss cheesed us all over the field. Lots of blame to go around. If you're looking for some positivities, we're going to cover them, but you might as well fast forward about 30 minutes or so. Ugly affair. Got interested with about 8 minutes left, and then it didn't get interesting after that because we gave up another touchdown. It was ugly. It started out pretty good, up 7-3, and slowly but surely things started to just go down from there. Welcome back, though, to another episode, like I said, of the Purple People Eaters podcast. We're going to break this thing down. The good, the bad, and the ugly. And like I said, there wasn't a whole lot of good to talk about. The most points ever in a Zimmer defense. The second most yards, I think. And I think the first in yards was back in 2014, Zimmer's first year. So, yeah, needless to say, it was an ugly one. It was an ugly one out there, but we're going to get into it. What the hell happened? No pressure at all. We didn't even get a hit or a sack on a pretty damn good quarterback, if I remember correctly. He's still a pretty damn good quarterback. It was just a game of pitch and catch out there with Rodgers and Adams. Gave up way too many long drives, and then in the second and third quarter, especially most of the second and even the beginning of the third, the Vikings offense didn't help either. And they turned the ball over. They had a safety. It was just an ugly one. It was really ugly. So we're going to break it down, like I said, and then we're going to look. The sun comes up tomorrow, so we are going to look till Sunday, high noon, against the Indianapolis Colts. It's a kind of a pick'em type game. Both teams are 0-1, so that dreaded 0-2 applies some pressure early on, because if you're going 0-2, it does hurt you percentage-wise, right, to get to the playoffs. But the big thing is you're facing 0-3 the next week, which is out. Well, hold on. Let's not. The sky's not falling just yet. We have had some defensive starts, like say through 3 or 4 games that have been pretty bad. 2018, even last year a little bit. So the local media, the Facebook groups, they're freaking out. But is it time to freak out? A lot of the things that we talked about in the off season got exploited. But like I said, we'll get into this in just a moment. If this is your first time listening to the Purple People Eaters podcast, I'm having problems with that. Welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. It does stream live right here on blogtalkradio.com/Rope-A-Dope Radio. It streams live and archives. However, you don't have to download it directly from Blog Talk or listen to it in the browser if you don't want. This podcast here, the Vikings podcast, is under the Rope-A-Dope Radio podcast at Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Player FM, TuneIn, Stitcher, really all across the board. We're also part of the Grueling Truth Sports Podcast Network, which can be found everywhere, including Spotify. While you're at it, why don't you head on over to thegruelingtruth.com. That's thegruelingtruth.com. It's football, it's basketball, it's baseball, it's boxing, it's everything in between. And one more thing, I got something for you. It's called AT&T TV Now. It's live streaming cable. I actually used it myself. They do have a 7-day free trial. Once you sign up, there's no annual contracts. The plans start as low as $55 a month. You can stream it anywhere. There's a cloud DVR, of course. And right now, if you sign up, you get a 30-day free trial of HBO Max. And here's another layer to the deal. If you sign up for AT&T TV Now Max, that package, it already includes HBO Max, plus 1 free month of Showtime, which is regularly $11. So that's something to take a gander into. AT&T TV Now, like I said, live streaming cable. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and bring in my co-host. and just kind of check his temperature, see how he's doing. Has the sky fallen yet? Are we 0-18? Are we tanking? What's going on here in Loserville?
Hey, Chris, I'm good. Yeah, Chicken Little, just like you said, is the sky falling? Looking at the Facebook posts, everybody's freaking out, and it's game one. I don't think it's great to say we're going to go 0-18. I don't think that's the case, but we did hit the nail on the head last week with just kind of the problems we saw with this defense, and maybe some offensive problems as well. The offensive line held up a little better than I thought it would. I'm a little bit encouraged about that, but that defense was shoddy, and we're going to have to talk about how we could get that fixed.
Yeah, man, it was shoddy. That's a good way to put it, dude. It was nasty, dude. It was ugly. It was an ugly one. The lack of pressure, like I said, no sacks, no hits. It's one thing to have only one or two sacks, but really putting it on a quarterback and still getting the hits, still making him, release the ball quicker. And then, the time of possession, that's where you got to blame the offense too. You can't just go to the defense, because here it is, the 18 minutes and 44 seconds time of possession today was the lowest in a regular game season since they started recording the stat in 1977. So you're not going to be able to do too much there. But for the defense stuff, there is some other stats that kind of throw out. Back in 2018. They gave up 390 in passing yards, 2 of their first 4 games. They made some adjustments. They got down. They got a lot of it down pat anyway. Remember last year they were having some problems with giving up big plays and whatnot. They went into the playoffs, maybe the last 5 games, really on a high note. So, like I said, the sky's not falling. We can do some of this here. But let's just kind of break some of this action down. Obviously, it started out, well, not necessarily okay for the defense. They gave up a 13-play drive, and this is what I'm talking about. So a 13-play drive, a 12-play drive, an 8-play drive, and an 11-play drive. Like, that is just too many to give up. And then, 3 offsides? I think it was 3 separate offsides on I think they're all DNs, which is just ridiculous. I know, in the whole home crowd screaming, so it wouldn't throw off the cadence, and you're just looking at the ball, but yet it does throw off the quarterback, because they can make that extra, they can say something, and the player can actually hear it, some sort of adjustment. I understand that does have something to do with having the home field, but remember, we're going to have 8 road games, so who's ever out there, and there's plenty, blaming that stuff on it, we're going to have 8 road games, so we're going to have the advantage then. Everyone's dealing with the same type of thing. But anyway, they went down, had a good drive. Vikings did at times, I don't know. They're usually a really good red zone team too, but that wasn't necessarily the case. They did have a turnover on downs the very next one after a 12-play drive. But for the Vikes, they went down, threw 2 passes right away and then ran basically the rest of the half until those last 2 quick possessions when we threw a pick and then we had a completion that set us up for a field goal. But, I mean, it's 3-0. Okay, cool. No big deal. Cousins actually did kind of move outside the pocket for that first down pass to Thielen. It's 7-3. Cook gets a touchdown. By the way, we will talk about Cook's extension as well. I forgot to mention that at the tippy top of it. But it's 7-3. Okay, no big deal. Okay, we're doing pretty good. Now they have a 12-play drive. We stop them. And by the way, the rookies had a rough one at corner, no doubt, but Danzler made a hell of a play there to have a little knockdown at the goal line. I really like that. But the safety play, I think 2 plays later, because, of course, we got I think we were offsides or false start. That's what it was. Although Cousins did say he actually took the blame for that, because I think he messed up the call or there was some miscommunication there. So Cousins actually did take the blame. I'll leave Elfline alone on that one. I don't want to go too hard on him this early in the season. But either way, when you look at the play call there, a play action that you need like 7 steps. You had the corner blitz. Zimmer talked about how we do have someone to protect that play, and they missed it. I won't call out who did it. That's what he said. It is kind of funny. It must be a young player or something, because usually he's not afraid to call out players. But to me, it had a lot to – sure, they missed a block, whatever. But to me, the play call there, a play action with that many steps, when they can get off the edge like crazy anyway and normal, that kind of bugged me. I wasn't a big fan of that. But they managed to put some plays together and get up 8-7. Minnesota, the offense, boom, punt, 3 and out, lost yardage. Actually, I think we had a penalty on that drive. They go down, 11-play drive, 60 yards, 5 minutes, 15-7. Then Cousins throws the pick, throws it behind the receiver. I think it was Thielen. That was a bad pick. Defense could have stood, maybe held a field goal. Nope, they gave up a bomb. 2 plays later, bomb for a touchdown, 22-7. Now, luckily, it was like a 14-second drive. There was a run and then a pass. They got a field goal, 22-10. What's your thought process right, at that moment? I mean, first half, Adams has 9 catches for a $102. And we have 4 attempts, 2 of them coming late in the quarter, the second quarter, after throwing the first two plays. And one of the completions was an interception. What'd you think here offensively and defensively? Yeah, the goal line stance was nice, but that's about the only good thing that they did. It was an ugly one early. Like I said, I liked that drive to close the half, but it did not look good past that first fucking drive on both sides of the ball.
No, it didn't. And there's some very noticeable differences, coming out, like you said, giving up those big drives. It was just tough to watch, but I did notice some defensive differences, like weren't playing press on the outside. Now that probably has to do with the rookies, maybe giving them a little bit more room, playing a little bit more zone. All the things, the Rodgers rules, we weren't doing. Now, why weren't we doing that? Could be many things, but I think it has to do with the youth in the secondary. Just trying to get them through this one. And, Rodgers did what he does. It took a little bit of time for him to kind of figure out what was going on. But once he did, it was like taking candy from a baby. And, you go through get that goal line stand. It's really encouraging. You think, things okay. Defense is going to settle in, but they just couldn't get off the field. They couldn't get off the field in third down. They couldn't get off the field in general. Every time the offense came on, turn around, put the defense back on. I think the time of possession, like you pointed out, was just the most lopsided, I think, in NFL history. And so now you look at that, you go down, you give up that safety. The unknown player, which I think we all know, missed a block or just missed an assignment and ended up with that. I'm not really, just getting too cute on the goal line. I think, it's week 1, and they did it again. Later in the game, we'll get to that in the second half, but on that 4th down, just getting too cute with it, man. Just run the ball out of the end zone. Get yourself some room, but, they tried to, I guess, trick the world and ended up tricking nobody. And so you get to that point at the end of the half where the ball's flipping back and forth, touchdowns being scored, you score a field goal. You kind of see the writing on the wall, and you go, okay, this is going to be a long day because the defense has held the field forever. You got to come back out and play the second half. It just it wasn't an encouraging sign at all to see the way the first half went down. And then the flurry at the end after the safety and after the interception. You just kind of saw, okay, well, this game's already out of hand. I'm going to watch it because strange things can happen. But you felt like the game was done at halftime.
Yeah, it wasn't looking good, and I like how you put that, Aaron. Just too cute. Like, what are we doing here? Let's calm down a little bit. Now, the offense came out and had a nice drive going, 6 plays. Cousins had that scamper for a first down, had a penalty. I think it was Riley Reif, 3rd and 16. Whatever. Now they had a little success. I think it was 7-play drive, the Packers, and they shoot up still 4 minutes in that drive. But to be, at least the defense stopped, though. That's the last stop they got of the game, which is just ridiculous. They forced 1 punt, and that was that. That's where we went all downhill. poor blocking on screens, so they couldn't develop, poor tackling on defense. But now we get to the spot where you're talking about. We move the ball again, and this time we're in somewhat scoring range. Now, it's not so much, I get going for it on 4th and 3. That's cool. It's a 57-yard field goal. Could you have gone for it there? Sure, but that's not a gimme. 57 yards, we know that. But like you said, Aaron, it's 4th and 3. Can we get some short route, literally 2 vertical routes? And then I saw Jefferson pull up probably after 10 or 12 yards and turn around like, okay, this is my route. Well, can we get something over the middle? I mean, like you said, just too cute. I mean, and sure enough, it burnt us because they took the ball and went right down, of course, scored a touchdown. And at 29-10, now you're thinking, okay, dude, this thing's done. Now, I'll give some credit to the offense because they finally did actually, get some stuff going, and they were quick striking. So they went to a quick huddle. It seemed to pay off 29-18. You're thinking, okay, let's see what happens here. Maybe the defense gives up a 7-play, 75 yards, almost 4 minutes. It's 36-18. So the offense responds. They get a touchdown, 36-26. It's 8 minutes left. 36-26 is not a death sentence. It's possible, but it's not possible when you give it up an 8-play, 75-yard drive. It's 43-26. And yes, that 9-play drive had a lot of good stuff in it, but we all know by that time, that's garbage time at that time. That touchdown is completely garbage because we still would have to get the onside kick, score a touchdown, get the onside kick, and try. It's not going to happen. All they did is run it out with 2 plays and ran out the game. I mean, it was ugly. I just couldn't understand how. And remember, Cortez dropped a 3rd down wide receiver for Green Bay, dropped a bomb that could have been a touchdown or at least put him like at the 3, and dropped the 3rd down that would have been within field goal range. I think that's the one that they punted. So it could have been uglier, that really blows my mind, Aaron, that it could have been uglier defensively and the goal line stand. You know what I mean? That could have been that much more uglier. So when you look at some of these targets, Danzler, Hughes, Hill, 24 targets, 20 completions, 249, 3 touchdowns, combined 149 QB rating, which is about as good as it gets. Danzler at least made some plays back, but I saw a lot of wide open receivers, Aaron. And also, to be honest with you, and sometimes it was on the corner, but sometimes the safety was in coverage, and we saw those guys falling down and getting beat as well.
Yeah, I mean, Hughes and Hill were definitely disappointing, and especially Hill. I thought he'd play a lot better, but, I can't tell if it was scheme or if it was them. They played zone, which they never do, and they played, off coverage. They weren't bump and running like they usually do, and I can't figure out why you want to save your corners like that. I mean, I know you're going up against Rodgers, but you know how to play him, and you did the opposite, it seems, of how you've always played him. You think you're going to trick this guy going into a zone? I just don't think you're going to. And I think you helped out a lot there. And, you look at the lack of pass rusher. You're a man down with Hunter. We understand that. You got another guy who's supposed to be pretty good in Ngakoue. And, he's been here 8 days. Give him a little bit of time. But no pass rush at all. That's not going to help you against Aaron Rodgers or anybody else for that matter. And then we've got the 2 inside guys that, we're great at riding the bench. And, we'll talk maybe later about I don't understand some of the reasons why we feel like these guys are going to be adequate. You want to hope that coach them up. Like you said last week, you coach them up and you get them good. Against the run, they weren't horrible, but they weren't fantastic. And there was just no pass rush whatsoever. So we need to find out what to do about that. But, yeah, you're right. Second half was just kind of, Kirk Cousins, a little too early to get ripping on him this year, but he said that interception he had was, that was an eye-opener. But, this guy can tear up a prevent defense. We saw a lot of that at the end of that second half where, this guy's just throwing ropes against a prevent defense and everybody's getting excited. And I'm just like, no, the Packers already took the foot off the gas. So, there's a lot to think about here. I thought Dakota Dozier showed pretty well offensive line wise, but a lot of holes in this team, man, and we got to find a way to get it figured out. It's week 1, like you said. Don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Try to find some positives moving on to week 2, but man, it was an odd opening performance as far as we've seen for Vikings.
Yeah, it really was. And when we're talking about coaching them up, I was talking about the secondary, not the defensive line. Actually, you know what it was? It was the offensive line, because they're just going to coach up that offensive line. They're going to recycle some guys. They're going to move some guys around and play musical chairs and coach them up. And you're right, they didn't actually have that bad of a game. The run game, we got a $153 out of it. We just couldn't run. We couldn't run anymore because we had to catch up so much once they extended that lead so much in the end of the third quarter. You couldn't really run anymore. So that there was no point. And we tried one play action, or we had one play action attempt and 3 attempt to do the play. He couldn't actually get it released because he got sacked. So, we had the run established to an extent, but it really doesn't matter, when you just don't have the ball, or when you're on the other side watching them just drive down the field. Now, the media thought they had their starting lineup, so we kind of went with what they thought. But Cameron Dantzler, he actually started. Hughes was on the other side, and Holton Hill and Dantzler were the starters, and Hughes would move inside to the slot as well. So that was a little bit different. They were talking about Gladly. Now, he did kind of mess up his knee a little bit, so maybe that was the reason why. But after leading the league in play action touchdowns, literally one attempt that you actually got to throw the ball. So that's not going to be a good one here. But think about that, though. It could have been even worse with like I said, those 2 drop balls. We could have gave up that much more. Now,
sure. I mean, it should have been even worse with those drop balls, but you and I both kind of called a loss. Now, we didn't see giving up 43 points, but we knew it was going to be a difficult day, and it was. I thought I maybe had a larger margin. I thought we'd give up 33. I couldn't fathom going into the 40s with Zimmer's defense, but I guess it was a perfect combination of young corners, no pass rush. This is likely to change as far as the pass rush is concerned. The corners likely to change as well, just due to maybe some familiarity with Dantzler. But I'm a little concerned about Holton Hill and Mike Hughes. Both of them, I hope they bounce back.
Yeah, I mean, Kendricks had a good game. I'll give credit for Cousins saying he was going to scramble more, and he did. I think there was a couple of times where it's like, right now, we're not able to pass, especially on 3rd down. Just run, dude. Just get to your second read and just run. So hopefully he keeps doing that. Like I said, Kendricks was all over the field, though. I got to give him credit there. The offense, really, the first and fourth quarter. Otherwise, they went to sleep, too. We can't just blame the defense. I don't know, man. It just seems like everything we talked about just got exploited. And it is what it is. Like I said, I read some stats about some earlier starts, as far as that Buffalo game 2 years ago. So some starts where you're like, wow, we did that. But then we ended up in the top 10 in defense, so it's not over like that. In fact, since 2015, 5th, 6th, 1st, 9th, and 5th. And we got off to pretty bad starts in 2018, 2019, and still managed, to not be a garbage defense. But
sure, Chris, but
it's hard not to think, though, Aaron. Look at the next 5 games and the quarterbacks we're going to have to play.
I know, and no defense is built to play 42 minutes. I mean, you just can't do that. I mean, I'm sure there were some pissed off defensive players even at halftime. They never got off the field. And you're right. The games coming up aren't much better. Now, Rivers, he's old, but he can still make throws. And we don't have the horses we had last year. So it's wrong to think that, we had him last year, so maybe we'll get him again this year. It's a different team. It's earlier in the season. It's a whole different vibe to just think that you're going to, go ahead and count a win on this next one. And you're right. After that, it's not going to get easier until maybe week 8 or something when you get a break with maybe a not so great quarterback. But, I guess if you got to throw kids in the fire, you throw them in there and you just hope that, they improve. So when that little bit of rest comes, maybe they can make hay.
Yeah, maybe. And a lot of people are like, well, where's our brand new, trade that we got, this offense or this defensive end? He's supposed to be a stud. Dude, he wasn't in camp. He didn't have a camp. So like you said, he's been here for 8 days. He didn't have a camp. So he's has to get his legs underneath him and figure out some of this system. Now, defensive end is a little bit easier to figure out in the system, but it is the Zimmer system, so there is a little bit more detail than you think. But we can't lose sight of Hunter not being in the game, and that's something that they didn't necessarily plan on back in free agency, in March and April. So that was not in the plan. So we're gonna get more pressure. We're definitely gonna get more pressure. Let's talk about, before we start, turning the page, we're going to talk about, the running back, Dalvin Cook now. We'll talk about the extension, but you also had something you wanted to talk about, and it kind of concentrated on the defensive tackles, maybe thinking about a grander scheme of things. Let's go ahead and breach that conversation, sir.
Oh, well, I had texted you earlier in the week, some amid, game frustration, but I got to thinking about this defensive line, in particular the interior of that defensive line with Jaleel Johnson and the other kid, Shamar Stephen. Now, Shamar Stephen had left us, went to Seattle. You said he signed a 1-year contract. I thought he might have got cut. Could have been both.
Now, he signed a 1-year contract.
Signed a 1-year contract. They chose not to re-sign him. He comes running back to us. We sign him up. We keep him on the roster for a couple years, and now we're going to start him probably out of necessity. But he did start last year in the 3 technique. So, it makes me wonder a little bit. I love Andre Patterson as a defensive line coach. He's gotten the best out of Hunter and some other players, but I start to wonder if there's some misguided loyalty there. Like, you're not these kids' dad. This is a job. I know you like them and they're good people. And I've kind of, hinted at this a little bit in the off season, but keeping guys around for seemingly no reason. I mean, yeah, they're good depth, but there's other players out there that can provide that same depth and maybe be able to play for you. And I just don't see anything coming out of Jaleel Johnson that makes you think, he's a star, or Shamar Stephen. He's had plenty of opportunities and hasn't flashed much at all. And you had what's his name, Sheldon Richardson, come in and outplayed him. Played better, and then next year you don't sign another D tackle. You think Shamar's going to play better, and he doesn't. And now we're stuck in this situation again with no 3 tech. You draft a kid, but now you got him on the practice squad. Is that because he's not as good as Shamar Stephen, or maybe you have some loyalty to Shamar Stephen that maybe is not really earned? And I'm not saying I know anything. I'm just saying it's getting a little bit old to seeing Jaleel Johnson on the roster for 4 years making no plays, as well as Shamar Stephen doing the same thing. Makes me raise an eyebrow. That's really all there is to it. And, if you want to transition into Cook, I mean, we had some really pretty deep concerns.
Before we do that, though, I want to talk about that, too, the D tackle. Well, obviously, we didn't assume Pierce would be out. We did think our country would be a little bit more ahead of the grade come August, but we weren't, and so it scared some people, and I can't sit there and blame Pierce. The guy got pneumonia like 2 or 3 years ago. He has asthma. He shouldn't be playing. I'm glad he's not. I mean, I'm not glad, but I'm glad for him. So obviously they did do their due diligence and sign what looked to be a perfect fit. So I can't really blame him for that. Some of these guys, though, you're still making a good point in general, though, because some of these guys we've had around, and they've just been that second or third guy. They haven't really been the reason why we've even been able to be still a top 10 rushing defense. So, the Sheldon Richardson, it's not about going out and getting another nose tackle or another, defense tackle, because, 1, they did this year. 2, they thought Linville was, going to be able to come back a little fresher. He couldn't. But it was Richardson or Barr. That's what it came down to, and we chose Barr. Now, like I said, we didn't know Pierce would be out. But as far as the loyalty and all that, if that youngster is better, I think they'd put him in. And another thing is, as far as loyalty, I mean, we got rid of 6 dudes on our defense, 4 of our top guys that played at corner. So I'm not necessarily I don't know. I'm not necessarily jiving with that part of it, the loyalty thing, because didn't we kind of prove this offseason that we aren't loyal to these guys?
I mean, you could say that, but we signed Pierce, but he's a nose tackle, so he's supposed to replace Linval. So you still have that problem at the defensive tackle, and that's what I'm talking about a little bit with Shamar Stephen. Is you're really going to think after how he played last year that you're going to think he's going to be as good this year without a Linval, or maybe with a Pierce he could have shown. I don't know. My point is that I see a lot of dead weight on the roster, and I kind of looked at it on the offseason as well, what I consider to be. Now, this is my opinion. You can have your own opinions out there, but you see a lot of dead weight that's just kind of sitting there, and you wonder why. Why Jaleel Johnson is still there. Has he 4 years? You'd think his potential would be good enough to play. I mean, you had Anthony Harris, for example. In 4 years he became a starter. Growth. You saw the growth. You don't see the growth with Johnson. You don't see the growth with Stephen. And I'm sure there's a few other pieces on the roster that you kind of feel the same way. So I wonder, try to find reasons, why these guys would still be on the active roster. And the only thing I can think of is that, like he's Patterson's pet cat, quote unquote. And now he's got another one with DJ Wanham. And I'm just wondering, are we running a daycare over here, or are we, it makes me wonder. And unless those guys step in play, I'm going to continue to wonder, because I just don't see why you can't fill those spots with players who are trying to maximize their potential.
Well, and obviously the cap plays into that too. You can only have so many damn good players, obviously, then, like you said, the development. And you are making a good point about that other position and how it hasn't developed. We only had one good year with 2 defensive tackles, and that's when we had Sheldon Richardson. But you make a good point. I don't know about the loyalty thing, because, like I said, I mean, we ravaged our defense this offseason. So some of it is cap, but yeah, I mean, well, looking back at it, now that we've had more time, Barr or Sheldon, could we use Wilson? And could he be adequate and have a better defensive line? Or do you think, because we paid a lot of money for Barr, that money could have went to Sheldon Richardson?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. I guess I would lean to the fact that you take Barr. People complain about Barr a lot, but he's 6'5". Yeah, he should rush the passer more, but in this scheme, he's asked to do different things. And since he's asked to do different things, you don't see him doing the things you think he should do, and therefore you get upset with him when he's doing everything else. I mean, he makes the calls. He's 6'5", playing an outside linebacker position. He's great in coverage. He's doing a lot of great things out there. I don't like people dissing Barr. Yeah, he's not the greatest. You put him against a receiver, he's going to lose that matchup. But so is every other linebacker in the NFL. So Barr does a lot. I'm going to repeat that. Barr does a lot. Just because he's not doing the things you think he should do doesn't mean that he's not doing a lot. And, I guess you pick him or Richardson, in hindsight, who would be more effective?
Wilson, too. We have two linebackers that we can put in on different downs, I guess was my point.
Sure, you got Wilson and you got the new kid out of Oregon, who looks to be a Barr replacement, by the way. Yeah, I mean, you could play Wilson. He's a totally different player, I think, as far as what he offers. But, yeah, I mean, you could stick him in, then you'd still have Richardson. But you've had chances, I think, to find a defensive tackle either in the draft or in free agency. And you didn't do that. So you have to have some faith in those other 2 guys. Why you have that faith, to me, is, I'm not going to call it loyalty, because I think that's a weird word. So I'll call it faith. I think you have misplaced faith in a couple of players that I just can't see what they're seeing. And I could be wrong. It's a long season, but after game 1 and after their performance up till now, I just don't see the kind of starter material that you look to. They just don't flash, man. You don't see them making plays, and you got to get plays out of those positions.
There's no doubt about it. I guess my point was that if you got a better defensive line, it does make life easier for the linebackers. That would be my only point. But yeah, I mean, it's several fair points that you made, and we'll see how this goes if we get exploited on that. Um, like you said, to have a nice companion next to you if you are a stud like Linville was a couple years back, and how this Pierce has been, as an NFL player, you still need that nice little 1-2 punch, and then it gets exploited if you don't have quality depth there, because that's exactly what's happening now. The extension, Delvin Cook, it made him, and I'll tell you what, for all that talk about, running backs not getting paid, man, you look at the last couple of months, McCaffrey, Kamara, like a ton of guys are getting paid, Henry, and now Cook, Joe Mixon as well. This puts them tied for 6th in the league for payment over a whole deal anyway. With Derrick Henry, Joe Mixon's right there. David Johnson's still on an old contract. Same with Le'Veon Bell got that new, but kind of older now. I like it. I mean, tied for 6th, I think that's a good place to have him, because that's about where he's at just because of the health. We kind of just met him in the middle a little bit. I think our offer was like 8.5. I think we bumped it up to 10. And I think it's like 12.5 a year, but it's probably not, well, it's not all guaranteed. So I'm sure he's going to have to work for it. I'm sure there's some roster, like in 2 or 3 years, you have to be on the roster. But either way, to get the rest of the bonuses and whatnot. But either way, if we're going to run this system, Aaron, we talked about this. If we're going to run this system, he's a great back to have, and it's not just going to kill us. But we got him on the squad for a while now. What do you think of this year?
Well, I'm happy about it. Obviously, I mean, maybe 2 years from now I won't be just because of the money, but you're right. He seems like Cook maybe said, look, I want to play, get this thing done, and with the timing of it. And so, I'm happy. It's a high price tag for a running back, and like you said, it has changed my mind a little bit about paying the running backs, but I think you do pay the top 10 running backs. I mean, it's the other ones that, you kind of can have some wiggle room on. I mean, they don't necessarily, like Mostert, those type of guys that aren't, elite running backs, I guess, in the NFL, or haven't shown that to date. And I'm glad Cook's back. He's made a captain, so you kind of got to sign him there. And like you said, we ended the show last week with some, we'd hate to see him get hurt and be gone or find another team after an ACL or something like that. And all that insecurity about that, is gone. Yeah, you had Madison who could run the ball, but Cook's been good, and he's been a great running back, but he's been a good teammate, you can tell, and everybody likes him. Now they made him a captain, so good to see him back. The money, I guess we'll worry about that down the road. I'm a little worried about that cap next year, Chris. It's supposed to go down, and that's another topic for another day, but you just signed Cook, and then you signed some other guys, and now you got to sign Ngakoue, and you got a bunch of new stuff on the books, and it's just like, well, how are you going to do that with a reduced cap? I think we're like 59,000 under the cap right now. I mean, we're tied up against the cap, and you can't ask everybody to restructure. I know Kendricks was good enough to do that with Delvin, but he just got paid up front instead of waiting for it, so it worked out kind of good for both of them. But yeah, I mean, it makes you wonder about next season, but next season is next season. We'll worry about that later.
Yeah, and we do have some folks coming off the books. Riley's probably going to come off the books. But as far as the cap was supposed to go way up originally, right? Of course. But we still don't know the fact that it was going to go way up. It may go down, but not as far as people think. Just because, like I said, it was going to take a big jump. And a lot of people planned that too. And so if you're already going to take a big jump, that jump it was going to take maybe the decrease in money. But remember, they are going to have all their TV money. They're not, well, knock on wood, they're not going to miss a game as far as right now. We'll see how the season goes. But it's a lot different than college and NFL for a variety of different reasons, the protocols and whatnot. And the fact that you have a house to go home to, you can have people go get food for you and all that. And you signed a waiver and all that. So I don't know if it's going to go way down only because it was going to go way up. Maybe I'm hoping it'll balance it out. But next year, yeah, that was going to be an issue. But when you see the next, the years after that, 2, 3, and 4, we have plenty of money. because we did get rid of a chunk of money too. So it'll be interesting. That Diggs contract basically just went to Cook. You know what I mean? So yeah, but it's going to be interesting, man, to see how far that goes down. And as the games go on, will we be able to get 10,000 people spread out in the stands? Somebody already did that. You know, if you can get some of that back, you're not going to get a bunch of revenue off that, but um, at least you'll know going into next year, hopefully, a year from now, that you're able to pack a stadium. But we'll see on that. Anyway, let's move on to this week. Um, we got two 0-1 squads going at it. They do, as of right now, um, they got Marlon Mack. They got a couple of guys here. Oh, wow, Julian Blackman, safety. They got some questionable injury reserve as Mack. They got some injuries, nothing too major. Are questionable on the injury report is the youngster Cameron. No, just kidding. Danzler. So, hearing the interview with him after, I liked what he had to say. I really liked what he had to say. I didn't think he had as bad a day as some people were saying, because he was in position. And when a youngster's in position, it's that little tweak that can, get him that much closer. The over-under is 48.5. We are a 3-point underdog. So we'll see. Aaron, are you there at all? You said that you're a little frozen here.
Yeah, you got me?
Yeah, I got you.
All right, cool.
Works.
Yeah, computer did a whole freeze action thing, so I thought I'd shoot you a text to let you know, but then it came back. We're good.
Cool. All right, well, good. That usually is not the case, so that's dope. Usually when the freeze happens, it's a wrap. So we are, as a Vikings fan, we are a 3-point underdog, which is, you can't really do the home and away thing anymore because of the crowd. It's so funny how many people said that. And yes, it does make a difference percentage wise. You're seeing that in the NBA for home court and all that in the crucial, game 1, game 5s, game 7s. It does. But like I said, we're going to get 8 on the road. Here's one on the road. They upgraded their quarterback. We had a great year against him last year, but that's with a very atrocious offensive line. And we have experience seeing bad offensive lines the last probably 4 or 5 years. So he's going to do better there. He had a big week, did Phillip Rivers, but he threw some picks. He does like to kind of sling it out there. What's your feeling on this week? Is the Vikings going to bounce back and get a W, or are we going to sink to 0-2 and then you start to look at, wow, next week's a must-win?
Well, I mean, it could go either way. I mean, another obvious statement, but really hard to call on it. And I think, the defense is going to come out with their hair on fire. I think they got a lot to prove. It's just, are the rookies ready to go? Are they going to change up what they do defensively? I mean, you can't sit in the zone and you can't play off by 10 yards. You got to get, Cameron Dantzler's built for bump and run. So I think you got to let them and just maybe take their lumps going at it. I think you might see Gladney a little bit more. But offensively, they got to sustain drives, Chris. I mean, that's really kind of the downfall of overall of last game, and why it got out of hand is you couldn't, offenses got to pull their weight, and they've got to be able to have some sustained drives. So I think you'll see them run the ball a little bit more, and that's always good because Cook can get some stuff done that way. So I think the Vikings win this one. I think it's also as upset as you were about last week. I think it's great to temper that, and I think it's great to temper the excitement you might get with a win this week. I think it's going to be kind of a ping pong season, and I think they win this one, something like 28-17, something like that. Nothing huge blowout, but I think the offense, kind of kicks in a little bit more. I think you'll see more Jefferson, and I think the defense will play a little bit better. I think now that they see game film, they understand who can do what and how, maybe ways to scheme a little bit better to get the most out of some players. They got some tape to look at now, and I think they'll do some different things. I think they win this one, 28-17.
That's funny. I was gonna pick 27-17. I was in between 27-20 or 27-17. So we're on the same page. I do think they'll bounce back. Like you said, it's nice to get 10 10 points and a half, sure, but there was like 3 or 4 drives where, like you said, you got to, even if, and that's the key about the offense last week and just moving forward, it's not like, oh, you got to score every drive. We know that, but even an extra first down or two would help, Aaron, because, hey, field position, and you gave the defense another breather or two. That was key. That does play into it. We can't, like we said, we can't just blame the defense now down the stretch to not, to have them score 4 straight touchdowns. That's ridiculous. And that's why, yeah, sure, I think you'd blame the defense the most, but you're right. You hit it on the nose. You do have to tighten up and just extend some drives. The run game actually was going. We only passed 2 times. Short passing. How about just a little post up to Rudolph? He's pretty good at the little post up 40-yarder. Maybe he breaks a tackle. I mean, let's not go just either play action deep or, let's mix it up a little bit. I am thinking that they're going to, like that 4th and 3rd. How about a slant to Thielen? How about get the youngster there? He made a nice catch or two and got roughed up and didn't seem to care about it. He's pretty good over the middle, and that's over the middle in the SEC, and the defenses aren't any joke in that conference. So we'll see. We're both picking the win, basically the same score, very similar. Any last words, sir, before we get the hell out of here?
No, I don't know if you want to bring it up, but the Gophers are getting ready to play, I think, next month, and I was going to ask you before the show, but I might as well ask you on air. What do you know about the scheduling at all? Is that come out yet, or are they reworking that? Where are we at right now with scheduling the Big Ten?
So it's the 23rd and 24th, a little over a month that they'll be back. Because right now, Wisconsin's on a 2-week timeout, so we got to wait for them. Iowa took one. It wasn't Nebraska. It's another team. But basically, the 23rd and the 24th is when they start. They're going to do, instead of a 10-game season, they're going to go throwback, dude. 8-game season with your conference final on December 19th. They're hoping to catch the wave so we can just have a normal college football season. They have a lot more testing. They have a lot more. They're going to do freaking x-rays, to check the lungs on. I mean, they're really – them and the Pac-12 are really in depth. So, yeah, that's what they're going to do. They're going to – hopefully they trim off one of those tough games. Now, we're going to play Iowa and Wisconsin because it's on that side. So I'm assuming it'll be just, 3 other games? Is it 5 games or 6 games on that side? It's 7 games. Yeah, so 6 of the 8 are going to probably be on the west side. And then hopefully they trim off Michigan. I don't know. Let's see which one they'll trim off. But yeah, so it's gonna get up and ready. So I'm glad you brought that up, though. That's a good call because the back end of our show is Gopher Talk, folks. So we will be back talking about that within about a month. So there you go. It's back.
Yeah. So if you lose a Michigan, you don't want to gain an Ohio State, but I don't.
Well, I don't think you'd gain anything because it'd be 8. You're cutting off 2 more games,
Sure. Yeah, I mean, well, okay, so follow us on the Living in Loserville podcast page on Instagram. We got some posts going up, and we'll post after this show, give you easy access to it. And, yeah, let's hope the Gophers can test and get well in their schedule. It'll be fun to talk about them again. And, let's go Vikes.
There we go. Let's get the victory. The sky's not falling, not yet anyway. Peace.